Now we're going to get into all of the specific requirements of safety policy in your reading assignments and your PowerPoint presentations. But here I wanted to bring to light some important things. I wanted to draw out some important things out of the regulation here in this short video that relate specifically to safety policy of a safety management system. Now this comes from 14 CFR Part 5. This is a United States Federal Aviation regulation that Part 121 certificate holders at this time must follow. So under safety policy, you will find the elements of safety policy. That's A, B, C, and D. Under that, look at A2. A2 says the policy must say that the certificate holder has a commitment to fill the organization's safety objectives. How is that going to happen? Well, that's in number 3. It's a clear statement about the provision. Where do those provisions come from? The resources have to be there in order to operate safely. It means dedicating adequate resources to training, maintenance, staffing, and etc. I want to drill down specifically into the reporting policy of A4 and A5. A safety reporting policy that defines requirements for employees for reporting safety hazards. So when an employee can come forward and say, I have done something wrong, I made a mistake, or I have observed something that is unsafe. How does the operator respond to that? Additionally, number 5, the safety policy has to define what is unacceptable behavior and conditions for disciplinary action. Let's get into that just a little bit more briefly. This is something that you'll see a couple of times throughout our course, and I think it gives a very good pictorial presentation of the Just Culture Guidelines. So if you are in management and you want your employees to report unsafe conditions throughout the workplace, that's really the only way you're going to find out about it, is if people are reporting it. That's the way that you're going to find out about it before a mishap happens. So upon investigating a mishap, you should look to uncover motives. If the mishap or the report happened because of human error, Just Culture argues that the involved employee should be consoled. Consoled meaning comforted. So why would that be? I make a mistake as an employee. Why would the employer comfort me rather than chastising me? Well, the employee messed up. The employee will feel bad. Furthermore, anyone else in the same situation, as the theory goes, may have made the same mistake as well. So when an employee comes to you saying that he or she has made a mistake, you manage that by assuming the process or the procedure or other parts of the system may have already led to that, and somebody else, another conscientious employee, may make the same mistake. So you manage that by changing the processes, changing the procedures or other parts of the system in which the person operates. Let me give you an example. My son is learning to ride a bike. When he falls over on his bicycle, I do not scold him. He had an accident. He didn't want to have an accident. He didn't want to skin his knee, but I might, in the future, if he falls over and then gets back on his bicycle again, I might run alongside a little bit closer to him so as to try to catch him before he falls, so that he doesn't hurt himself, so that he keeps his confidence level up and he keeps trying to do it well. If an employee, conversely to that, displays at-risk behavior, taking risks that are unnecessary. Before chastising the employee, look at why they made the choice they did. Did the employee elect to take a flight into compromising weather? Well, that's unacceptable, but why did they do it? Did management inadvertently encourage that by not wanting delayed or canceled flights? In that case, coach could be the appropriate response. So look at the list for managing change of at-risk behavior for coaching employees. In fact, at-risk behavior, if employees are displaying at-risk behavior, that is a really important clue for management to look into the mirror. at themselves to see what it is in their processes and procedures that are creating motives to where employees will display at-risk behavior. So finally then, in this chart, intentional disregard for procedures or regulations, that's reckless behavior. That is cause for punitive action, and very definitive and just and swift punitive action according to just culture. So when somebody breaks the rules, when somebody does, performs recklessly, flies airplanes at low altitude just for fun, that is the kind of thing where swift and active process happens to remove the employee so that they're not causing unsafe practices for fellow employees or for customers. So look at this chart. I encourage you to spend a little bit of time on it. You'll see it throughout the course. Process through that. You'll actually see it also on some of the quizzes and tests. Okay? So process through it. See what you think. We'll get opportunities to discuss it in future weeks. It may take a little bit of looking through and really wrestling through to fully buy into it. And I look forward to your points and your thoughts on it as well. This is not a be all and end all. But it is certainly a point for beginning our discussion. So, after setting up requirements for policy, resources, and reporting in FAR 5.21, the FAA requirements for the accountable executive are here now in 14 CFR 5.23. It stipulates what exactly is required of that accountable individual. You will find in your reading that there is a specific anomaly between accountability and authority. A manager has authority over an employee, and the employee is accountable to the manager. So it goes both ways, right? However, what if accountability and authority get out of whack? Sometimes you can have too much authority and not enough responsibility, let's say. Sometimes you have too much responsibility without much authority. This little diagram on the bottom left of your screen is quite interesting to me. A manager then with too much responsibility over in this column and no authority down in this column gets frustrated. Why is that? Well, they're responsible for things that they cannot control. Conversely, if, say, there is too much authority without responsibility, too much high side on the authority, low side on responsibility, you get what they call a tyrannical, dictator type leader. Little authority, or with a lot of authority and not a lot of responsibility. They're not responsible for their actions, therefore a tyrannical leader or a dictator starts to emerge. Okay, you see how that chart works then? Little authority and little responsibility means apathetic. And the right balance, really what we're hoping to find, is enough authority balanced with enough responsibility. Think through this diagram as well. Wrestle through that. Examples will be presented in upcoming discussions and quizzes and such. The goal then, with regard to the accountable manager in safety policy, is to have a balance of authority and responsibility in your management team, and then, depending upon the level of risk assessed in a mission, to have the right level of management involved to accept the risk. So for high-level risk, what you're hoping to find, or what you need in your processes in your safety policy, is that high level of management is needed to be involved to accept or to deny the mission. Low level of risk, you don't need to involve those high level managers for that. We're going to get into how to determine what is acceptable with mitigation or acceptable risk. We'll get into the different levels of risk, the risk matrix, and that sort of thing as we go throughout our course. Main thing under safety policy that I want you to understand here is that the higher level of risk equals higher levels of authority required to take on the responsibility of making that decision. All right, here again, we've given you the screenshots of the Federal Aviation Regulations. FAR 5.25 then takes the accountable executive a step deeper even. Now be sure that you take the time to read these regulations. They are the PowerPoint presentations explain how they are outlined and you need to read through them, get an understanding of them then. So 5.25 takes the accountable executive a step further, charges specific authority and responsibility. That's authority up here, responsibility in B, providing that needed balance. So you see, safety policy is much more than a written statement hung on the wall to collect dust. You will gain much more insight through your reading assignments, and you will learn that safety policy is a living, active, and foundational instrument to a successful safety management system. When properly implemented, it can be a powerful conduit to enhance safety and SMS implementation.